I'm going to say some pretty radical stuff in this segment, so bear with me. There's an article that I saw that is saying obesity changes the brain with no sign of reversibility, expert says. And I want to say that obesity does not change the brain. Now hold the fucking phone for a goddamn second. Sugar changes the brain. What is obesity? Obesity is a result of eating sugar. This blaming obese people thing has got to stop. Obesity is a second order symptom of sugar addiction. Step 1, you become addicted to sugar. If you are addicted to sugar for a long enough period of time, you become obese. Obesity doesn't cause anything. Obesity is a symptom. So the idea that obesity changes the brain is fundamentally bunk science. So why do they say that? Because the phrasing obesity changes the brain puts the onus on you, the individual. And it also drives a wedge between obese people and TOFIs. What is a TOFI? Thin on the outside, fat on the inside, which is how most people's bodies are. You genetically have a predisposition to where your fat deposits are likely to go first, right? And a lot of people, their fat accumulates on their body visually, you know, the big bellies that we see in obese people. And a lot of people, you see the fat accumulate on the inside, around their organs, most notably their liver, their heart. So I want to show to you, before I read this bunk science article, I want to show you two statistics. Nearly all Americans fail to eat enough of this actual superfood. Now they're hiding it here, but fiber, what is fiber? Fiber's vegetables. Fiber is vegetables. 5% of Americans eat vegetables. So what are they eating if they're not eating vegetables? They're eating frozen food, fast food, processed food. Here's another statistic. So what happens when most people don't eat fiber and they eat a bunch of sugary, high fat, high salt, high sugar meals? What happens? Only 7% of American adults have good cardiometabolic health. Metabolic syndrome is the #1 precursor to diabetes, as well as other illnesses. What is diabetes often referred to as the disease of obesity. 93% of Americans have the #1 precursor for diabetes. And yet, you see articles say it's just the obese people. Just the obese people. It's just the obese people. It's not you. It's just the obese. And you know what this does? It makes people judge fat people. Is being fat a sin? Most people think so. Why? Because they're fucking stupid. They're fucking stupid. You are taught from a young age that fat people are funny and they deserve to be mocked. You see this in television. You see this in culture. You see this in school. You see this all over the place in society. Fat people are funny. Let's make fun of them. Did you know that 20% of kids, children, we're talking about fucking 5-year-olds, 8-year-olds, and 12-year-olds, children. 1 in 5 children have non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. What is that? Well, fatty liver disease was originally found to be the disease of alcohol. People that would drink for 10, 20 years would collapse, wake up in a hospital, and have a doctor tell them, you got a fatty liver. It's going to kill you if you don't stop drinking. So how do motherfucking 8-year-olds get fatty liver disease? from the juice boxes, from the cereal, from the Pop-Tarts. Because parents, we have normalized a culture of child abuse in this country, feeding kids drugs and poison that permanently alters their brain. Okay? Obesity doesn't do fuck all to your body. Obesity is a second-order symptom of the root cause, which is sugar addiction. So when you see all of these motherfuckers, obesity, 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 it's not obesity, motherfucker. That's called a coping mechanism. Statistically speaking, this headline applies to 93% of Americans. But I ask you, are 93% of Americans obese? No, it's only about 60%. So how do we go from 0% of kids having fatty liver disease, which was the standard 50 years ago? 50 years ago, if you were a kid that had fatty liver disease, they would write about you in the newspaper. You would be a scientific, like, people would, like, fly or ride trains to the hospital you're staying at to study you if you were a kid that had fatty liver disease. Now, 1 in 5. So let's see this. Obesity may damage the brain's ability to recognize the sensation of fullness and be satisfied after eating fats and sugars, a new study found. Again, it's not obesity. The sugar industry covers up, just like the tobacco industry covered up the dangers of cigarette smoke. The sugar industry purchases studies to make things about obesity, which is your fault. Instead of, I don't know, the fact that our food industry puts drugs in the food. Should we discuss that? The fact that the food industry puts drugs in our food that results in 20% of kids having fatty liver. That results in 93% of us having the #1 precursor for diabetes. Should we talk about the drugs in the food? No, no, no. Did you know the USDA American Guidelines for Sugar Consumption? Added sugar consumption. What is added sugar? That's like getting a fucking spoon and putting it in the sugar bowl and putting it in your mouth. That's added sugar. The guidelines for Americans say that you should be eating 20 grams of added sugar a day. What? Imagine, for a moment, if the USDA guidelines or whatever said, yeah, in order to maintain a healthy diet, you should drink 5 shots of vodka a day. What? What? Healthy guidelines would be 0. Now again, if you want to have dessert, fucking go for it. If you're on vacation for a week, I took a vacation a month ago, and I'm not gonna lie to y'all, I ate fucking like 3 tubs of ice cream. I was snacking on Twizzlers. Motherfucker, I was drinking some soda. I was having fun, you know, get it out of my system. That's fine. But the idea that the government is going to tell you that it's healthy to consume 20 grams of added sugar a day. By the way, you want to know what the average adult consumes on a daily basis? 70 grams. 70 grams of added sugar a day. What's healthy? 0. What does the government tell you? 20. What does the average person do? 70. Did you know kids average 80 grams of sugar? Now, you may not know this, but kids are smaller than us, adults. So when you put a drug into a kid's body, it's going to have just a 1 gram to 1 gram. It's going to have a different effect on a smaller person. In the same way that if you give an 8-year-old a shot of whiskey, they're going to get way more fucked up than Grandpa Jeff, who's 320 pounds. Why? Because they're fucking smaller. So kids are eating more sugar than adults, and they're smaller, So it does more damage to them. 20% of kids have fatty liver disease. But don't worry, everyone. Obesity is the problem. It's your fault. Not the food industry. We can never blame the food industry for putting drugs in our food. No. God forbid. I want people to really understand. This is one of my, I guess you could say, wheelhouse kind of categories. As a formerly obese person that has suffered with weight issues my whole life and has a lifelong drug addiction to sugar. Why? Because my parents gave me ice cream and fast food every day. So yeah, I'm well aware the damage that was done to me when I was undergoing a mandatory medical experiment by the food industry of the US to force feed children sugar and high fat, high salt processed food. I am a victim of this medical experiment, and I'm here to tell you the idea that it's just the obese people, that's called a coping mechanism because it's all of us. That's the default in society. Unless you were raised on like a vegan commune somewhere, like off the grid, chances are you got a sugar addiction. So this idea that it's just the fatties, yeah, man, it's just those fucking fatties, you know, those fucking fat bastards, all them. Further, those brain changes may last even after people considered medically obese lose a significant amount of weight, possibly explaining why many people often regain the pounds they lose. There was no sign of reversibility. The brains of people with obesity continue... With obesity, by the way that the medical industry just takes the food industry's talking points with obesity. Fucking with obesity. Give me a fucking break. Continued to lack the chemical responses that tell the body, okay, you ate enough, said Dr. Carolyn Apovian, a food industry plant, a professor of medicine at Harvard Medical School that was bought and paid for by the sugar industry, and co-director of Center for Weight Management, also bought and paid for by the sugar industry, and wellness at Brigham and Women's Hospital in Boston, that, by the way, probably got a grant from the Coca-Cola industry. So... As defined medically, people with obesity have a body mass index or BMI of over 30. BMI is a proven scam. I need people to really understand the layers of scamming going on. So what's the science? The science is when you are addicted to drugs for an extended period of time, that changes the way your body behaves. In this instance, the drug is sugar. Okay? So what do? Well, they say it's obesity, and they bring in the horoscope of the obesity field, BMI. BMI that was long since debunked. It's the IQ of the medical field. What does the BMI tell you? It tells you your BMI, and that's pretty much fucking it. In the same way, what does the IQ test tell you? It tells you your IQ, and what does that do? I don't know. People think the IQ means something. People think BMI means something. BMI doesn't mean jack fuck. BMI doesn't tell you how much fat percentage your liver has. Is that what BMI tells you? Does BMI tell you if you have 30% fat ratio on your liver? No. So what the fuck does BMI tell you? It tells you your motherfucking BMI. So again, we got this bunko junk shit fuck science here that's masquerading the real science, which is sugar is a drug and it's in your food every time you eat. You are being poisoned. Imagine if we put fentanyl in food, people would be freaking the fuck out, right? Apparently not, because that's exactly what's happening. The study captures why obesity is a disease. Obesity is not a fucking disease, said food industry fuckface Apovian. Obesity is a fucking symptom of a disease. The disease is drug addiction, and the specific drug is sugar. The disease is an addiction to sugar. That is the motherfucking disease. And I'm sick and tired of these fucking articles, people reading this shit, and then their takeaway is, well, I'm not obese. Fuck those fatties. It's fucking stupid. This whole fucking argument, this debate, this conversation, whatever you want to call it around food in this country, is fucking stupid. It's fucking dumb. It's dumb. You got a bunch of dummies that sold their soul to Coca-Cola. By the way, did you know the American Diabetes Association gets the bulk of its funding from the sugar industry, with the bulk of that funding coming from Coca-Cola? The American Diabetes Association. You know, the guys who help draft government policy, they're funded by the soda industry. And so that's how we get articles like this. The disease of obesity. What? This would be like, you know, when people are diabetic. Sometimes diabetics have poor blood circulation, or poor blood flow, or poor ability to notice injury. And oftentimes, especially historically, you would see diabetics get amputated. Their foot they'd step on a rock and they wouldn't realize that they stepped on a rock until they got infected or whatever. Now imagine if we called that the disease of amputation. What? Well, yeah, they got amputated. It's the disease of amputation. That's as illogical as the disease of obesity. What? Obesity is a result of a sugar addiction, which 95% of Americans, if you're not eating vegetables, it's pretty hard to avoid sugar. Like, find out what food, tell me what food doesn't have sugar in it, but also doesn't have fiber in it. Like meat? And what is the bulk of meat treated with? Chemicals, nitrates. A lot of meat is coated in sugar as well. Just think about it. Think about it. This is some fucking bunk science. The study is very rigorous and quite comprehensive, said Dr. Dumbfuck Mix Shit for Brains, funded by the soda industry, a professor of metabolism and medicine. Wow. A professor of metabolism really is going to tell us how obesity is the problem. Not metabolic health. It's obesity. Where do these people get their monies from? You can find more about this if you'd like. I just hate this. I hate everything about this situation because it's all lies and it's all gaslighting. It's the same shit with the cigarette industry, the tobacco lobby. It's the same shit with the fossil fuel lobby that funds science that says, don't worry, guys. Fossil fuels don't cause climate change. No way, bro. No way. Fossil fuels and climate change. What? Cigarettes and lung cancer. Come on. What are you, dumb? Sugar and obesity? Come on. That's magic. You're telling me if you eat sugar, you become obese? Get out of here. Give me a fucking break. And I want to, real quick, in fact, I'm just going to leave this up. I want to talk about the inverse. Real quick. Just a little pin, an amendment, if you will, on this segment. Have you heard of this, healthy at any size bullshit? Now, that's another coping mechanism. I'm telling you this right now. This healthy at any size, plus sized, we're all healthy. That's some motherfucking bullshit. Like, I just want to cover this for a moment. Because as obesity is becoming mainstream, because sugar addiction is already mainstream, and most people have a genetic predisposition for gaining fat externally, you often see people say, obese, I'm healthy at any size. Now, again, I'm not necessarily telling you that body positivity is a bad thing, but what I am saying is that you should not be happy to be obese. You should not be happy to be fat, because that is a defeatist victim mentality. Now, I say this as a formerly obese person. I used to be 260, 70 pounds. I stopped weighing myself when I got super fat, you know. I didn't want to know. But the last time I weighed myself on the way up was 265. So, I know what it's like to be fat as fuck. All right? I can tell you that. And you cannot be healthy when you're fat as fuck. I'm telling you that. Now, I will say that there are obese people that are healthy, that have a good metabolism. You can eat a shitload of food, and it can all be healthy food, and your metabolism can be great, and you can still be obese, and you can be healthier than most skinny people. That's possible. It is very possible for an obese person to be healthier than a skinny person. Extremely possible. Okay? That said, you should always strive to be as healthy as possible. And again, what happens also when people want to lose weight? Well, there's an entire industry of scam artists that lie to you about how to lose weight as well. You ever hear of the term calories? Calories are another scam invented by the food industry. What do calories tell you? Calories tell you how many calories are in the food. That's it. Now, some people think calories equal energy. That's a conspiracy theory, unproven. How do they measure the caloric value of a food? They blow it up inside a box and find out, like, they put a number on it. That's literally, I'm not shitting you. They just do something where they blow it up in a box and measure the energy reading. Now, you may note that a box is not the human body. Right? Calories are a scam to convince you. Now, I just want to say this. Calories, as a mainstream unit of measurement, where did it come from? The soda industry. Coca-Cola started putting calories on things. Coca-Cola. Now tell me, if Coca-Cola brought calories as a metric into the mainstream, shouldn't you be a little skeptical of the metric? Right? Right? Shouldn't you be? What do calories tell you? Calories, in the same way the BMI tells you what your BMI is and IQ tells you what your IQ is, calories tell you how many calories are in the food. That has nothing to do with your human body. So the reason why Coca-Cola and the soda industry started mainstreaming calories is they could put something nice on the box, on the label, say 60 calories per serving. And how much is each bottle? Like, it's like, 2.5 servings, right? Oh, we got fractions, can't do math because Americans are too dumb, right? So, they want you to believe, and Coca-Cola ran commercials about this in the early aughts and late 90s. They want you to believe that a calorie is a calorie. Yeah, you had a soda, but that's okay. It's 60 calories, and you need 2,000, am I right? So I ask you a question, and most people should be able to answer this pretty easily. If you consume 2,000 calories of Coca-Cola versus 2,000 calories of a Caesar salad, are you just as nourished? Do you have the same amount of energy? Because if calorie equals energy, like we are taught in school, that they lie to us in school that calorie equals energy, then if I drank 5 Coca-Colas, I'd have the same energy than if I constructed a nice, lentil soup. I would feel the same. My body would be as energized, right? Now, most people understand salad and soup is a lot healthier than cola, but how is that possible? If a calorie is a calorie, how is that possible? Oh, right. It's because calories are also junk fucking science. A calorie tells you how much energy it gives off when they blow it up in a box. Here's another question for you. Do you understand what the gut microbiome is? Did you know that there are billions and trillions of bacteria that live inside of you? It's called your gut microbiome. Trillions of little motherfuckers trying to live their lives right in your intestines. So when you eat vegetables, what does fiber do? Fiber feeds the bacteria. Fiber is undigestible parts, often of plants, that your stomach acid cannot fully break down and that your body has no nutritional need for. So why do we need fiber? To feed the bacteria. Because if we don't feed the bacteria with fiber, what do? They eat the other food that you eat. So if you don't eat fiber and you're consuming 2,000 calories, chances are your body is not even getting those 2,000 calories because a lot of it is going to be eaten by your starving gut microbiome. So this is why a lot of people that are in food addiction cycles, when they don't have a strong and healthy microbiome and they don't eat vegetables, this is why you see people eat food and then feel hungry a couple hours afterward. Not to mention the carbohydrates spike glucose and then bring it down, and then the crash makes you hungry again because you associate a glucose crash with hunger, which is also an unhelpful association. But it's also that literally every time you eat, your body's not actually getting what little nutrition is in the poison that you're eating. Your body's not actually going to get it. So I have a question for you. Everyone has a microbiome. Would you rather your microbiome eat your food? Or would you rather the microbiome eat its own food? It should be that fucking simple. And again, I say this. The default in society is to be a drug-addicted loser. 95% of Americans are addicted to drugs. Now, they might be upset when you tell them that reality, but 95%, including kids are more addicted to drugs than adults, actually. Again, 81 grams of added sugar is the average per child when they're about half the size of adults, which is the average of 70 grams. So about half the size and a good percentage of more drugs. So I'm telling you this, motherfucker, it is a radical act of anti-capitalism to be a healthy person. It is radical to avoid the sugar industry's grasp. Now, I'm not saying, when I use the term drug addiction, I have no problem with being addicted to drugs. I'm addicted to weed. I have no problem with it. I'm addicted to caffeine. I got no problem with it. Okay? Why? Because I know the pros and cons. I know what I'm getting versus what I'm leaving on the table. Well, with sugar, most people don't know the pros and cons. Most people don't know they're being drugged. It's like, again, imagine buying an ounce of weed and then you smoke it and then you realize, oh shit, someone put fentanyl on the weed. That's essentially how Americans are going to the grocery store. They don't even know they're addicted to drugs. So then they do other things like blame the obese as if that's a thing that exists. So again, I fucking hate this shit. And this is one thing you don't see anyone else talk about this in left-wing spaces. You don't see this. Why? Because again, 95% of Americans are sugar addicts. So statistically speaking, you're going to see left-wingers be sugar addicts. You're going to see liberals be sugar addicts. Right? And they're afraid to confront that reality. And just this is my own personal rant, is left-wingers don't want to help you in your personal life, typically speaking. I mean, some of them do. Some of them offer advice. But oftentimes, left-wing politics was all about how can we blame the government? How can we blame the government? Yeah, the government is fucking us in the face. What are we going to do about it? What are we going to do about it? If the answer is nothing, well, I'm not interested. So I say this. I want you to eat better. I want you to spend more money on food and less money on other things. I know. I'm aware of how difficult that can be. But I need you to understand, as someone who over the last 3 years, 4 years even, I lost count of how long ago 2020 was. I made the decision that I'm not going to, again, I'll have little moments where I eat a lot of sugar, just like a bender, that's what I call it. It's like you take a week off, or, it's the weekend, baby, let's drink all day. I do that. I go on sugar benders now and then. But I made the decision that I want to get healthy when it comes to food. And I spent more money on food to the point where I didn't have much money for other things. And it was worth it. Why? Because I felt better. I felt better. Mentally speaking, I felt better. Physically speaking, I felt better. I had less back pain, less joint pain, just from losing weight. That's one thing that weight does. But I also just I used to have breathing problems. You know, I don't know if it was asthma or what. I don't have that anymore. I used to have other chronic health issues. Don't have them anymore. Now, again, am I sitting here to tell you that vegetables are going to cure your illness? No. But they cured mine. I had a chronic health issue that I had from like the age of 6 all the way up until I was like 22. And when I fixed my diet, it went away like magic. So I just want to let you know that a lot of chronic health issues are second or third order from sugar addiction. And so if you do feel like shit, think about it. Think about it. Even if you're thin, even if you're a tofu, thin on the outside, fat on the inside, think about it. Sugar addiction is still fucking your shit up. So there you go. Obesity changes your brain. I don't know about that. In a country where 95% of Americans are addicted to sugar, I think it's the sugar that changes your brain. Obesity is not a chemical. Sugar is a chemical. And it's a psychoactive chemical. When you consume sugar, you get what's called a sugar high. And reminder, we feed this to kids. Would you give your kid beer? Would you give your kid wine? Would you give your kid a fat joint? Hey, maybe you would. I don't know. Well, let's have the conversation. But I'll tell you this. As someone that does not have kids, I would rather my kids smoke a fat blunt than drink a juice box. Why? Because the juice box is going to cause much greater lifelong stress and illness than the fat joint. I'm just saying. Boondocks Dragon says, I felt sick for days and then suddenly felt better than ever. I was fighting stage 3 breast cancer at the time. The dietary change was mine. I want to touch on this. And this is, the term holistic has a lot of negative association because of scam artists. But I consider myself someone who's very knowledgeable. Now, I'm not a doctor. I didn't go to medical school, whatever. But I consider myself very knowledgeable in holistic treatments. And I can tell you, I have had family members go to the hospital. And I've seen what they feed them at the hospital. You ever see this shit? Ensure. You know about Ensure? They feed this to cancer patients. Ensure. What is Ensure? It's a milkshake with like 30 grams of sugar. They feed that to cancer patients. Now, did you know that sugar accelerates cancer? And did you know that fasting, what does fasting do? It promotes autophagy. What does autophagy do? It's your cells eating each other. What is cancer? It's your cells growing too fast and not recycling properly. Fasting promotes autophagy, which promotes the fighting of cancer. Sugar promotes the growth of cancer. They feed cancer patients sugar beverages like milkshakes. Why? Because the food industry funds a lot of hospitals in this country. That's why when you go to a hospital, oftentimes you see vending machines with Coca-Cola and other sorts of treats. For whatever reason, my fucking wires are like stuck on my chair. I don't even know how this fucking shit happened, but I gotta... So what do they do at hospitals? They don't give a fuck about treating cancer. Now maybe they do in the abstract. They'll give you chemotherapy and all that. But imagine a world where in order to treat a gunshot wound, right? So first we need to get a scalpel and jam it in the wound like this, like you're fucking the fucking wound with a scalpel. Jam it in there, twist it up like that, and then put a bandage on it. And then change the bandage, jam the fucking scalpel back in, fuck that shit up real good, put the bandage back on. That's how we treat cancer in this country and all kinds of other illness. So, I'm just throwing that out there.